Morning, people. Okay, let's have a bit of fun today. If you followed me for a while, you know that Twitter was always my main platform, even for my video content, but especially with everything going on at Twitter right now, I've only recently just started putting everything on YouTube. But that does mean I've been out of the loop on the YouTube conversation for a while. But as you can imagine, as a young, black, politically active person who opposes Brexit, I get a lot of hate from the worst parts of the internet. And because I wasn't really on YouTube, I didn't see most of it, but every now and then I get sent a link to some right-winger having a massive rant about me. And one such lovely individual is Meyer Tusian. To give you a little flavour of the quality of the stuff that he says, have a little listen.
Self-titled spoiled anti-Westerners like Femi. I'm going to show you a couple of clips of why someone like him says that the Queen is a symbol of colonialism.
The Queen, as head of state of the British Empire, is a symbol of colonialism.
Now that was from last year, and the one little minor detail that he failed to notice is that that wasn't me. The dude had a 10-minute rant about the wrong Femi. Which brings us to his reaction to my tweet from last week about age demographics shifting in favour of Remain.
In case you didn't know, we still have a lot of EU rejoiners and Remoaners who are basically a bunch of undemocratic and disgusting cultists.
Oh, did I mention he's very, very subtle with the support for Brexit? But don't worry, he at least read out the whole tweet.
Femi said, since 2016, 1.5 million Remain voters have died and 3.15 million Leave voters. Right now, we'll have 9 million Remainers and 14.26 million Leave voters because Leave voters are dying. You do realize Remain voters are also losing their lives.
You see, it would be insulting for me to say that he has the memory of a fruit fly because fruit flies remember things for 12 hours. But he's acting like my argument doesn't take into account the fact that since 2016, Remainers have passed on too, even though he read this out 10 seconds ago.
1.5 million Remain voters have died.
But let's hear his arguments.
This is ageist, and it's irrational, it's illogical, and it makes absolutely no sense.
Sorry, ageist? Ageist! He's calling our side of the conversation ageist. Remembering, of course, that it's Brexiteers like him who say that there should never be a referendum on rejoining the EU. Which means that according to him, anybody who is currently under the age of 25, i.e. wasn't able to vote in the 2016 referendum, should have less of a say in our relationship with the EU and the effects that's having on the economy than people who are 95 and dead. Brexit is the most ageist thing I've ever seen happen in this country, especially when you remember what happened just before the 2019 election. Because they had a vote in Parliament on whether to let 16-year-olds vote in the election, and this was the reason the Tories gave for not doing that.
And whilst the age of voting, should be a debate that we have in this country, to suddenly thrust upon us right now, when we know it'll probably favour one particular party, now's not the right time to do it.
Translation, if we let 16-year-olds vote, they will vote for Labour, Labour will hold a referendum on the negotiated Brexit deal, and we will stay in the EU. Another way of translating that is, if we let the people who are most affected by Brexit have a say on Brexit, we won't get Brexit. But this is just how right-wingers operate. They're calling us ageist for pointing out the fact that the system is ageist, just like they call us race baiters whenever we point out racism. Because they're the ones in power, and they're supporting a government that recently admitted to deliberately suppressing the votes of young people.
Parties that try and gerrymander end up finding that their clever scheme comes back to bite them, as, dare I say, we found by insisting on voter ID for elections, and we found that the people who didn't have ID were elderly, and they by and large voted Conservative. So we made it hard for our own voters.
So to pretend that I'm the one being ageist for standing up for the millions of young people who've been screwed by this Brexit government is insane.
Really? It is the best sort of argument they have. So the only way they could win is if their opponents die.
No, we've already won the argument. The people of the UK want to rejoin the EU by a ratio of 51 to 32. Hell, even 19% of Leave voters think Brexit was a mistake. But Brexiteers like him refuse to accept the idea that a society can change its mind about things, and so the only argument left is, okay, fine, even if they haven't changed their minds, they're not here anymore. Because I don't want to make these grim arguments about death, but it's Brexiteers that chose to act like the 2016 referendum result was a permanent decision, knowing that the people who'd have to work in that economy didn't want to. But carry on.
So they're just assuming everybody who voted for Brexit were already 95 years old.
No, some of them were teenagers. Not many of them, but some of them. But this is what we call a straw man, where you pretend that your opponent is making a stupid argument that they're not making, so that you can beat them on that.
Also, how can you check? Do you think when people lose their lives on their death certificate, they're gonna say, okay, this was their age, this was their name, this is how they voted in 2016?
Same thing again, honestly, some of their arguments are so stupid that they just highlight how ignorant they are. Because anybody who's paid attention to Brexit at all knows that on the day of the referendum there were several exit polls done by YouGov and Lord Ashcroft, and they all showed the same thing. Older people mainly voted Brexit, younger people mainly voted Remain. And that generational divide still exists today, so all he's done with this video is either highlight how completely ignorant of the facts he is, or that he's hoping his 300,000 followers are. Have a great week.